Great. So, a very warm welcome from the CII Eastern Regional Council. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Ajay Shriram, Chairman, CII FBN, and Senior Managing Director, DCM Shriram, Mr. Farhad Forbes, Chairman, FBN International and Co-Chair. Can I request the admin to again please put everybody on mute? There's a lot of noise in the background.
Your voice is going on. You might like to put your video off. Actually, your own bandwidth may not be enough.
Are you talking to me?
Easier to hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Voice is coming and going, so there may be a bandwidth issue at your end or in the system. It'd be better if you turn your video off so that it's all used on the audio.
I'll try to see how to do that. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Shriram, Chairman, CII India Chapter and Managing Director, Forbes, Mr. Farhad Forbes, Chairman, FBN International, Co-Chairman, Forbes Marshall, Mr. Sanjay Budhia, Managing Director, Patton, Mr. N.V. Sivakumar, Partner and Lead Entrepreneurial and Private Business, PwC India. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to the past presidents of CII and the past regional chairmen who joined us today. We have some very distinguished personalities today with us. Thank you everyone for joining us. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, the group and NCB Jewelers, for extending their support. Friends, things will never consumer, the way he spends, the way he consumes, the way he commutes, the way he communicates. Everything is going to change. And this will have to change to meet these new needs. This new era is certainly going to change history. And one of the jokes these days is that they just BC and AD to a BC and an AC, a before Christ and Anno Domino to a before COVID. Crisis teaches and we adapt. Human beings have a great ability to adapt. We moved being and family businesses are faster and more agile to adapting to this change, and change is the which we can survive the new COVID era. Responding to uncertainties arising from COVID-19 crisis, a plan to revive businesses in and coordinated manner is now a priority. The current situation is an interesting challenge for the family. The families that can emerge stronger from this crisis will be the ones that can navigate this period of uncertainty successfully, turn the current challenge into a competitive advantage. And while some of us are watching Mahabharata, I would like to quote one of the lessons from our epics. Sometimes one has to lose a few. Sacrificed Bhishma Pitama and Guru Dronacharya. But at the end, what remained was for the greater good of mankind. We may have to sacrifice. It will be difficult, but when we come out of this, and we shall, it will be for the greater good of our people, the country at large. And family businesses will certainly be able to adapt and handle this much better. Now I would request Mr. N.V. Sivakumar to take over and start the interaction with the eminent panelists and hear their perspective. Over to you, Shiv. You're on mute.
No, I'm not on mute. I've been unmuted.
Yeah. Okay. We can hear you. Sorry.
Sorry. So thank you, Ritam. Thank you for that introduction, and a very good afternoon to all of you participants to this webinar. I think this is something which is very, very contextual in the current times we are living in, as opposed to throwing you a different presentation, we decided to have an interactive dialogue with a voice from the industry. We are very privileged to have a distinguished panel of 3 industrialists spanning different businesses to us. And I am actually privileged to actually engage in a dialogue with them on various aspects of reviving family businesses and how family businesses can jumpstart, and make a difference in these current times. Ritum has already introduced the panelists, but once again, I would like to formally welcome onto the panel Farhad Forbes. All of you know Farhad, he doesn't need any introduction. CII International Chairman. I'm an FBN International Chairman, and he is a co-chairman of Forbes Marshall, which is a leader in process engineering industry. I think so. We don't need no introduction. Mr. Ajay Shriram. Ajay is a past president and actually a very well-known, celebrated industrialist, heading Shriram, DCM Shriram Group, which is into multiple businesses, from urea, sugar, to caustic soda, to chlorine, you name it, they are in. So we need to get some insights on how they're running businesses. And then lastly, the darling from East India, Sanjay Budhia, who is actually a very well-known in the industry circles as well as in social circles. Sanjay leads the Patton group, which is again into again multiple businesses, mostly in electric conduit fittings, PVC pipes and tanks. Very happy to have you all here. Now, I think just to set you a little more on this, the way we have structured is we're going to have a 40-minute discussion with the panelists, which will be followed by a Q&A. And I'm conscious that we have some very good distinguished audience in the people in the audience. So we would actually open it up for a larger Q&A if possible. Yes, Ritum mentioned about this event being like a black swan event for us. Everything has changed and everything has disrupted. So I'm actually going to open the question to all the 3 panelists with a word which is actually drumming into us every day, which is the new normal. 4 decades of my service in PwC, I have been running around with clients on the air. Now everything has stopped and I don't know when I'll fly again. So for each of us, the new normal is different. So I would like the panel to come again with Farhad and Ajay and Sanjay talking about what this new normal is. In some form, I would say that the COVID crisis has fundamentally changed the way we think of business, we think of our lives. Earlier, we took it for granted. The freedom of the way we want to live has actually changed. Today, the longer the COVID lasts, the longer this crisis lasts, we don't know what the new norm is. So may I actually, because open this panel discussion by requesting Farhad to start off on how he sees this new normal in his business and what his reactions are, and then followed by Ajay and Sanjay.
Good afternoon, Shiv, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. When Shiv spoke to me yesterday about this panel discussion, and he said, think about what is the new normal and what are some of the takeaways that possibly that we have learned. I could think of 4. The first is taking for granted and assume that things will change fast and unpredictably. If you look at the situation that we have confronted with, and we go back to what it was in February and early March, I don't think any of us would have imagined that we would be where we are today. And then if you go to the 3rd week of March, and then through the initial lockdown and what it is today, things have changed dramatically, almost day to day. So I think the first message, I think, is take nothing for granted. Assume things that will change they will change fast, unpredictably, and we need agility in thinking in our response. The second is to learn to adapt. We need to be aware of the situation and think how to act. And also, I think one of the things that at least I have learned is that you need to accept what you can't control. That's not something which we feel very comfortable with. But I think it's something which the crisis has taught us, that we have to accept what we can't control because there's just so much that we can't control. Third is make the best of the situation. The use of technology to optimize working from home is something we all learned. And many things that we thought was not, which would not be possible earlier, have become possible. That includes connecting with customers, where you're able to, have training sessions. We're able to book orders with them, pursue for collections with them. Second, time to review your own internal processes, using the technology to do that, and also using technologies to connect with our own employees, with our own members. So that's the third thing. And finally, the fourth was that understand that many of the new ways of working are here to stay. It's not going to, these are things which will be here to stay for two reasons. One is because the unpredictability of the future. We're not sure whether the lockdowns will end, whether they will be extended, whether they'll be lifted and then reinstated. So those are all the uncertainties which go ahead. And so these new ways of working actually help us to actually deal with that unpredictability. And finally, because of the many of the new work practices are actually good practices, they are worth continuing in the normal times in the future as well. So those would be my four takeaways.
Thank you, Farhad. And over to you, Ajay.
Thank you, Shiva, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure indeed to be here today at this seminar. When this entire coronavirus news started, one never imagined the extent it would impact the world. One read about it, what was happening outside. One heard about what's happening in India. But I don't think anyone ever thought that this sort of a war in the world, invasion on the world will happen of this nature, which would paralyze the world. In today's world, in today's situation, after seeing the last couple of months, we've now started talking about a negative growth rate in virtually every country in the world, between -1% to -7%, 8%, and the impact is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. What we have discussed over the course of the last 6-8 weeks as a group of brothers and as a group of executives, because I think they are very important. One, that now change is permanent. We just have to accept that there is a new way of working, there is a new way of management, and how do we adapt and how do we adjust to that? I think second, in spite of our company being, if I may say so, quite forward in terms of using ERP packages and IT, but the digital world has created a very different manner of control, management, communication, and connections with all business partners, internal and external. I think that's a new way of digitally connecting with people across the world. And that has been something which has been a great learning of how to carry that forward. I think the third point is how our people are reacting and what is the approach we can have with our people to actually bring in a sense of optimism, bring in a sense of positivity, and bring in a sense that, yes, we are in a situation, but we will get over it. We are going to come out of it better by learning what to do differently, how to become more efficient, how to become sharper, how to become more focused, and how to serve the customer better. I think all these things are coming about very clearly. And fourth, I just put it is, I think one of the things we've learned and seen over the last 6-8 weeks is you have to have an open mind. I think, moving on preconceived notions and philosophies of the past won't work today. One has to have an open mind we feel, and I feel personally also, consulting people, getting outside in views, especially in a family business. If I may say so, many families feel they know it all. I think in today's world, that will not work. How do we get outside in views? How do we get different objective views of the same situation within a company? I think they are very important for the success of a company and for the future growth of a company. So my request is go with an open mind, consult people, get inputs, but take your decision based on what you think is the best input. So I think these are some of the approaches which we've adopted to go forward in this situation of the Corona war.
Maybe because we are warming up nicely, Sanjay, over to you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. While we are in social distancing, I feel that this time also is the time when we have come closer to yourself, closer to your family, closer to your friends whom we have not talked for ages, and that is on the personal level and on professional level, as Ajay and Farhad said, this is the time to come closer to your clients and to your customers and your colleagues. On the normal course, while we have been macro managing, but during this time, I have seen that getting involved more deeply was very, very fruitful because you had time and you could introspect. I don't remember that any time we would have looked into the insurance policy, what our companies are taking, whether that covered the risk, whether the factories are running for 30 days or not, and whether the insurance policy will cover, whether the ECGC cover is still valid or not, what is your outstanding with your customers, and on a daily basis to review that. So it puts a sense of commitment, it puts a sense of purpose. With your colleagues, we have been doing meetings every day. With our customers, we have been talking. We are primarily into export business, so with the overseas customers, which I will talk later. But this has been a great learning. We are all blessed here with our families, and when we talk of the family, let me just say that this may be after 30 years that I played a game of carom or Chinese checker with my parents and my daughter. So this was also the time to be with the family and friends, as I said, whom you have not met or whom you have not spoken to. So we have to see that it's a half glass full and half glass empty. So what the situation which is going on is naturally inevitable, but what is positive and how can we make the best of it? That is what I think all of us who are blessed to talk and to work from home, we need to do it.
I think different perspectives from maintaining agility to adopting technology to having an open mind to actually in the area of in this age of social distancing, Sanjay, you said we got to reduce the distance between us and the customers and us and the people who work around us. So thank you. I think it's been a nice perspective. I would like to actually move on with the next question, which is now that leads us on to how we see as business leaders, how you are seeing this economic recovery. We're all under lockdown. Everyone currently is asking what next? How is actually the economy is going to move forward? Now, the question to you, Farhad, if I may ask you, what is your perspective on the nature of the recovery you see the industry is going to have in India? As a background, I read somewhere that all pandemics, if you really look at after every pandemic actually has been followed by a V-shaped recovery. Now we're talking about if the pandemic lasts a little longer, the lockdown lasts longer, the industry is fearing that it will be not a V-shaped, but it could be a U-shaped recovery. Sometimes it could be a W-shaped recovery if there is a start and stop as we go along. And in the very dreaded situation, it could be a L-shaped recovery, which is actually, you don't see economy revving up. So, against these three segments, where do you see us heading as a country, and what is your perspective?
I wish I knew the answer to that, Shiv. All I can say is that just as unpredictable as this crisis has been, I think predicting the recovery is equally unpredictable. As we all have said, that this has been an unprecedented crisis. It's been unprecedented in terms of the speed and also in the terms of the depth of the impact it's had, and in terms of the global scale. So There are so many variables and so many factors here. Also, in terms of the health issue, whether this is going to, we're all quite clear that this is not going to go away in the immediate future. So I think the recovery will depend on probably two things, really. It's dependent on how soon we can restart economic activity, whether it can start soon enough, and second, how quickly it can actually happen. So I think these are the two factors, really. And the weather will depend on the approach of the government in balancing the focus on the health issue, in managing the crisis, managing the virus, because I don't think we're going to be in a position to curtail it. The spread is going to happen. So it's more a matter of how we manage it. And secondly, balancing that, the health issue, with the economic factors there, the economic impact. And then the second factor is how quickly we are able to, will depend on how coordinated the restart can be. The lockdown was not a very coordinated response which happened. There was so much of things which were changing day to day. So on the other hand, if the recovery is to start, the restart is to be there, how coordinated can this be in terms of not having contrary directives from different authorities, whether it's the MHA, whether it's state governments, Department of Industries, the local authorities. So all that has to be coordinated, including the cop on the street, the policeman on the street, in terms of how he is going to interpret what directives are. In terms of what we need to look at, I think as far as looking at what our own businesses, I think we need to look at things in the short term, medium term, and the long term. In the short term, the key is to manage cash, collect all that's due to us, defer expenditure on the non-essentials. So that's the short term. In the medium term, be prepared to operate with a reduced workforce for a while. Our operations are not going to get back to 100% capacity. We need to understand that and make the best that we can by way of optimizing efficiency, productivity in our workplaces. In the longer term, I think this has taught us one thing, and that is we need to diversify. Diversify as much as possible with regard to customers, whether in terms of geography, in terms of the industry that we cater to, and also finally in use of technology, the new ways of working, which Ajay spoke about as well.
Touched upon many areas, and one of them I would pick is you mentioned about making sure that cash conservation is there, okay, now as one of the things, and making sure that the new models are actually adopted to get when the lockdown is lifted. So that leads me to a next question, to which I would like to request Sanjay to sort of respond, which is, what in the value continuum, how does he see, within his own business, any perspective he has got as to what impact the consumer and the market will have in this changed environment, and how are they responding to these new shifts in both demand and supply?
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, we are primarily into exports of engineering products, precision electrical engineering items to US, and in US our customers has been classified as essential services, and we are part of their global value chain. So it has become a catch-22 situation where you need to ship the products, and actually we are under lockdown. And going forward, we have seen in today's paper also, and for last 1 week we have been saying that there would be a shift of industry from China elsewhere. And as per the Nomura's report, which was reported this morning, only 3 companies out of 56 who want to move from China have relocated to India. 26 have gone to Vietnam, 11 to Taiwan, and 8 to Thailand. So it's a big opportunity for Indian industry to capture that space, which gradually will be vacated from China. And I'm sure that Indian businesses will come forward and grab that opportunity. This challenge has also brought a lot of opportunities for Indian companies to come forward, and I'm sure we should catch that as soon as possible. Government should put up a war room where any opportunities coming out should be immediately, intention should be converted into implementation.
Okay. So I'd like to move from operations a little bit on the people side of it, and I'd request Ajay to respond to this aspect of people. When we say people, I'm saying from a family business point of view, family is made up of family ownership and also the businesses which are underpinning it. So all along, the purpose and values are the connecting tissue. I think if you really see that family businesses, the people aspect of it is very central to it. The longevity of the company, commitment, and everything is dictated by that. So, Ajay, you run a large conglomerate. How are you seeing that, and what are you doing to bring your people and management together from the management side of it? And within your family, how are you addressing it to actually stay cohesive and actually think of addressing this challenge posed by the crisis?
You're right. I mean, there are two sides of it, as you rightly said. One is the family side, and the other is the larger organization side. On the family side, frankly, we have three brothers who are the managing directors, and we have 4 more next-gen members. We 3 brothers attempt to have a Zoom call, a video call every day, to just recap and feedback to each other what's happening in the businesses. Each one is in touch with different businesses, and also to understand what's happening outside the business and are there any learnings for us. Because we do appreciate that each of us are different. Each of us has a different perspective. Each of us has a different learning. How do we pull these together and really add value to whatever direction we want to take? The second, what we talk about is how do we reinforce value within the organization? And people, as you rightly said, is the first, but we also have to reinforce that we are in the business for the long term. We are not for the short term. How do we reinforce the long-term view in whatever decision making we take? How do you reinforce our business partners' relationship? Some of these things we discuss in the family very actively and very frequently to communicate that down the line to all the other people in the organization. One more issue we talk about, which is today, I mean, Farhad has also mentioned, others also. Honestly speaking, in a situation like this, where we don't know when things will come under even 50% normal, leave alone 100% normal, cash is king. How do we manage our cash very judiciously, very carefully, and how do we get the mindset change of everyone in the organization to start believing that they have to look at running the business in a different manner? Now, coming to the people side, as this lockdown started, frankly, in the course of the first 2.5, 3 weeks of the lockdown, we sent out 2 letters to every employee in the company. One was a general letter inquiring about the health of each of them, to take care about the uncertainty, but we are in it together, reinforcing our values, and how to make this a learning curve. The second letter we sent out to every employee again was how do we utilize this occasion when we are not coming to the office, we are working from home, but we still have time. How do we utilize this time for one, personal learning, individual learning, business and personal, from both sides of it? How do we sort of gain and educate ourselves individually better? Second, how do we utilize what I mentioned earlier, digital technology more optimally in the organization down the line? So we requested everyone to give a thought on that. Then we said, please do some scenario planning. If this happens or that happens or that happens, how do we address that? Then we said, when the factory starts, please start making detailed SOP sheets, process sheets. So when we get into the business again and start operations, we know exactly what to do, importantly on the people side and on the operations or the factory side. On both sides, we said do that very, very deeply. And then we said, please write down and let's share at a later date your own experiences of the COVID-19 trauma we've been through and what is the learning for that in the company. So we actually went into a lot of detail with our people. We are having weekly review meetings with the entire set of senior people and focusing again on this issue of our customer connect, which has to be very strong. Our people have to be connected with people down the line. How we're ensuring the safety of workers entering the factory. We have very detailed specifications of how to handle our people there. Regarding our cash flows, how to manage that tightly. We've asked all of them to remake their budgets for the year 2021, which were made about 2 months back. Please revisit it now because we cannot have the same level of costs on the revenue side and the capex side as we had planned 2 months ago. The business environment has changed. We all had to tighten our belts dramatically. What do we do? How do we look at things differently? At the same time, we said no compromise on the SHE factors, safety, health, and environment. Whatever capex is needed, whatever training is needed for either of these three, we as a management are 100% open to put in money or to put in training, whatever is required to be done. And just to share again this issue of People Connect, on the 27th of April, actually is the birth anniversary of our founder, Sir Shriram. And in all our factories across India and our operations in Philippines, we always have a function where we get all the employees together to celebrate together, and they have plays and participation by employees and their children. And we have normally a chart party and we have some, a get together so that we celebrate our founder Sir Shriram's birth anniversary. Believe it or not, we had it this year, but in a virtual mode. In a virtual mode, we had 15 different functions. We had over 5,000 employees who participated in this. And you add to that the family members who sat together with them. So we must have had 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people of the entire group who participated in a virtual Shriram Jayanti celebration this year. Because we want to reinforce the value of people. We have a long service award function, which is held every year on Shriram Jayanti, where we give a silver salva to people who work with us. It was announced that date and it will be given at a later date. We are trying to keep the connect as strong as possible, reinforce our values, and what we are stressing over and over again is, one, again, I'm repeating, be an optimist, because you can always have problems. That's part of the job. While there, you didn't have a problem, you don't need so many people in management. So be an optimist. Secondly, work very hard to keep employees safe. That's very important. Whatever needs to be done, do that. And third, please conserve and generate cash. Please be very conscious of that. So we sort of, in a holistic way, try to approach with all our employees and more so with the senior team whom we connect as a collective group every week, otherwise individually more frequently than that. And by God's grace, since the beginning, our sugar factories have been working throughout. In the last 3 weeks, we have started our urea manufacturing plant, which is today running 100%. We have a caustic soda chlorine plant in Gujarat and in UP and in Kota. They have both started and running at about 40% in Gujarat and 50% in Kota. And gradually our businesses are coming online. And I must be honest with you, the state governments, whether it's in UP or in Gujarat or in Rajasthan, have been very open and cooperative to make sure that we get our operation back on track. Movement of people, movement of goods and services. One has to, it takes time. I mean, that's part of the ballgame. But I'm an optimist, and I think over due course of time, things will come back to normal. We don't know how long it will take, but that's part of the ballgame.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajay. You actually answered a wide gamut of questions. So the next question which I had, more or less since you asked, you sort of answered by covering really across different dimensions of restarting the operation, touching on people, processes, plans. So I think I'll lead on to a question to Farhad going forward. No, I think there is a lot of debate that there is a pressure on employees. At one end of the spectrum, organizations have to make sure that the employees are taken care of. In between, there is a cash crunch. The second bit is, their expectations on rewards from employees. And then the fourth bit is, in this new world, you need to digitally upskill them and actually prime it to a new beginning. So against all these moving parts, Farhad, what are you doing to address it in your organization? And, any comments you have and any this one to the audience?
I think it's just one word, and that is communication. And I think Ajay spoke about that actually. So one of the things that we did is we started, I think it was even before the lockdown went into effect, because in Pune we actually stopped operations. We were forced to stop operations about 4 days before the lockdown happened nationally. So we started a communication we use Google Hangouts, which is similar to WebEx and Zoom and all. And we started a communication with all our senior managers. So we have 42 managers online every morning at 9 o'clock. And we've been doing this every single day since I think the 20th of March. And it's a short call. It's just about maybe up to about half an hour, where we take a review of where we are, any developments on the health front of the previous day, and a few general operational things that we talk about. But the main purpose of this is actually just to listen to people, listen to what they have, listen to some of their concerns, and then just share where we think we are on this. I think so. Listening is very important. The second thing is to be authentic. It doesn't help to say things which we don't know. We have to be honest. We have to be calm, but we yet have to be honest and say that we don't have answers. And then the third is, I think, have some plans in place to deal with the situation as it is today. Fully realizing that whatever we have in place today may change tomorrow because the situation may be different. But having those plans and getting people to participate in creating those plans creates a sense of purpose, and creates a sense of purpose even in adverse circumstances. So we have found this extremely useful and helpful. It has helped build morale, and it has also helped people see that, no matter what the uncertainty might be, by working on things and having small successes, whether you can still get an order from a customer despite the lockdown, when you're still able to get a reasonably significant collection despite the lockdown, and then also to share experiences of how they're using the new technology in new ways as well. So these small successes actually are very motivating, very inspiring for people. That is actually what we have found.
Can I come in here?
Sure.
Yeah. So, echoing the points what Ajay and Farhad said, we also felt that, in this uncertain time when there is a fear of virus, but also there is unsaid fear about your own family, about whether there would be salary payments, whether there would be salary cuts, whether you will be retrenched. So in the last week of March, about 7 days back, we said, the full salary for April will be paid. So we got so much gratitude from the employees and their families because there was a fear of unknown, both from the virus and from their own side. So that mental balancing was very, very important. So that one communication which we sent out that time was really very rewarding. Then we found the participation and communication, as both have spoken, that is the key for this time, that we need to be constantly in touch. And going forward, people should have confidence that, in good times and bad times, we sail together. And these are the people who will take the company forward, and we need to support them when the time is there for us to come forward. And I don't think, bad times will remain forever. And as everybody says that we are optimists, we are positive, and we should look into the better part of it, that what more we can do with the same team. That is my take on this.
Thank you, Sanjay. Actually, we are getting quite a few questions, so we need to have some time for Q&A. So I'll actually quickly go through a few more questions before we bring this panel discussion to a close. Given that, I think on the audience, I expect a fair amount of next generation also attending that. My question to Sanjay is, how do you see the next generation playing a part in addressing this crisis? PwC, we actually released a survey last year, which is a global survey, and one of the findings was the next generation said they're ready to operate in this digital world, and they need the license to operate. Now, in the new digital world, do you see, Sanjay, next gen playing a significant part, and any suggestions, this one you have for the current generation on this?
Yeah, that's a very, very relevant in my case particularly, because my daughter Priyam is a very active member of FBN also, and she has seen during these days that you need both enthusiasm and experience. She has seen us talking to the factory people, she has seen us talking to the clients, because on the normal time, her routine and our routine would be different. She has seen how hard work, both the wisdom of seniors. My father, fortunately, is also available sometimes to give guidance and advice. So the digital world and the speed what Priyam has, plus our hard work, both combined together, I would say the enthusiasm and experience is something what the Gen Next has to respect, and they have to accept that their forefathers, their fathers and uncles, what they are doing, that has some merit. While they would definitely like to go for new lines and new technology, new products, but they should also see the kind of businesses which have been built by their forefathers and by their parents with hard work and their blood. That is something which they should respect and they should accept gracefully. This is a lesson, I think, in all family businesses. This is something which I value much more than anything else. Thank
you, Sanjay. And the next question is for Ajay. If I can ask your view on the government efforts here. We have seen what's going to be, in your view, the ask from family businesses, from the government, state or central. What do you think that they can do to support in reviving family business operations? I know that there are some policy measures have been given, a bit of fiscal stimulus has been injected, but any quick thoughts on that, Ajay, given your deep experience and connects?
Thanks, Shiva. Well, government definitely has a tough job. I think, even taking a decision to lock down a country of 1.35 billion people and keep it this way for 40 days is not a joke. It requires a lot of courage and a lot of conviction. And I support that. I think it's required. They have been gradually opening up. But if you look at a macro point of view, and we look at other countries of the world, how they are encouraging industry to grow, how they are helping the common man, I would just put 2-3 points which I think needs to be done a lot more. I think one, the government has to be a very strong promoter to improve the sentiment of the people in India, more so of the industry. Let's be honest, unless the industry survives, people don't get jobs, government does not get revenue, India's GDP does not grow. So unless industry is very actively coming back to focus and growing, the whole chain reaction goes into a tailspin. I personally, I'm not an economist, but I don't believe that we don't have money and we can't do it. Frankly speaking, if we don't do it and we don't have money and things go worse, you will never have money. So it's better to, in some way or the other, like other countries are doing. If you look at our debt, India's debt today in the range of about 60-65%. US is in the range of 160%. Other countries are over 100%. You have to print money, please do that. But you have to change the sentiment of the people in the country. You have to give money to the hands of the common man. There's migrants who've left and shifted out. They are in a tough position. The BPL line people, you have to give the common man money. Let it cost 100,000 crores more. I think that's a small price to pay for a country like India, where we need to get the people's positivity back on track and not get into a negative tailspin. that the country, this government is, thirdly, I'd say, this is not the time to, find out what's wrong with this company or that company. Look, you'll have black sheep everywhere. But this is the time to move to help everyone. And you might give someone 2% or 5%. So be it. It is going into an economic exercise which will actually generate something further. Our biggest challenge to me is going to be jobs. Somehow no one is talking about jobs. I've not heard anyone talk about jobs as the prime focus of what our economic stimuli is going to be. We have to get into 5 to 6% at least of the GDP to be able to stimulate the economy and take it forward. We have to remove the sense of fear which is there today. That, one read 2 days ago, the tax authorities were told you must increase your tax target and you must achieve what was given to them 2 months ago. Look at the economy today. How can, there's no matching in that. You can't expect that same thing to come about today. So give cash in the system, give cash to the common man so they can at least have money to buy their daily requirements in food. MSME sector is most crucial. They are the largest employers. Give it to them. Large enterprises too require tremendous amount of help. Good thing is agriculture, government has taken a very strong view and focusing on, and that's moving. That's a good direction. But I think sentiment change today will play a very major role in changing how the economic recovery will move. You're on mute.
One last question for Farhad before I address some of the questions that has come to the panelists. So very quickly, given that you as a FBN global chairman, you interact with the wider FBN community, what's the sort of, what are you hearing how the global businesses in the FBN members globally are actually addressing this COVID concerns? And are you doing anything to bring in some of the best practices learning onto the Indian fraternity?
One of the things that we have in FBN is that it's a global community, and I think that's the great strength of FBN. We have 33 chapters, 65. We are in 65 countries, and we have about 17,000 members all over the world, all family businesses. And this crisis is, as we've spoken before, is a global crisis. It's hit every single one of the countries that we're in, every single chapter. Some, of course, much more than others. I mean, if we see how significantly Italy and Spain and France have been hit, and members themselves have been hit, has been incredible. But there is a great sense of community. There's a great sense of sort of sharing. And I think the greatest benefit that we have is that there's a lot which has happened after the lockdowns all over the world in terms of, again, use of technology, in terms of getting people together and sharing some good practices. I'll just share with you. Yesterday, I got a communication from someone from Germany, from FBN Germany. It's Peter May. Actually, Ajay, you will remember we met Peter when we had our cross-chapter visit to Germany. And he talks about a few observations. I won't go through all of it, but his closing is about family business capitalism and what that has to, it can really be a role model for the future. And he talks about 3 aspects of family business capitalism, which I think are worth sharing. First, he says, it's a capitalism for which sustainable management is part of the DNA. It's a capitalism that acts based on the motto, and he quotes a guy, he's actually Peter Zinkan, who's the head of Miele, the appliance company, where he says, we don't want to double the value of our company every 3 years. We want to pass on an intact company along to the next generation every 30 years. So that's number one. The second, he says it's a capitalism that is resilient because it attaches greater importance to stability than to profitability and growth at any cost. We would rather give up a few percentage points of growth than risk its resilience in a crisis. And I think that's so true for what we're going through today. And finally, the third is that it's a capitalism for which economic success and social responsibility are inseparable. So these are three things which he talks about for family businesses, which actually stand for what we can create as a role model for the future. So these are some of the things that we talk about in FBN. These are some of the things that we learn and we share amongst our members.
Thank you very much, Farhad, Ajay, and Sanjay, for very interesting insights and for your engagement on quite a wide range of topics which you have covered. I'm sure that the audience have found it useful. There's some few questions that's come in. I thought I'll take about 3 of them and quickly post to them, given that we have about 10 more minutes. The first one is, how do you bring confidence to migrant workers who have returned to their native places to come back? Maybe Ajay, you would like to take that question? Any comments on that?
Well, it is a challenge. I think the entire mechanism by which the migrant workers were stranded for a long period of time has created a problem in their mindset. I think once industry stabilizes again and the migrant workers know that their job they had earlier is secure, I think they will come back. Because people want to work, people want jobs, they want to get back. I think they will come back. Maybe the terms of employment will change somewhat, give a little more surety and security. That would be one direction. But the other area, which I'll give the example of UP and Bihar, which is happening right now, agriculture season. The migrant workers who come back, they are the ones who are interesting, involved in the fields in these 2 states at least. I can talk about that. They have jobs, even though they left their original jobs which were there in cities earlier. They've gone back to their home state and they've got the jobs, and this is actually helping the farmers in these areas. But the challenge overall of getting migrant workers back to fulfill the role they were playing earlier, I think it will require some more convincing, it will require some more better management for them, and I think some assurance that God forbid, if there's a crisis, there is a better way to handle their conveniences and their requirements at the time of a crisis.
So there's one question that is coming from different many audiences on the balancing between people and profitability. As a company, how do you see that? There is a pressure for you to make profit. There is a making sure that the employee welfare is equally important. Any quick comments? Anyone can pick that up?
Well,
Go ahead, Ajay.
Well, it is actually speaking, people are the backbone of a company. Unless we have our approaches, and I'm sure everyone's is, getting the right person for the right job at the right time. I think that's a situation everyone is gunning for all the time. What has happened now to see how people are working from home has created a new paradigm, a new way of working. I think there's a lot of learning which has to be done as to how to optimize people's time, how to optimize people's efforts to be most productive going down the line. And how can we get people involved in different ways of managing the business? Maybe if you're working from home, have some people working from home instead of coming to the office and bring a new role, a new value-added role. One has to rejig how people are going to be working so that we get the optimum value coming out of the people under the new way of working. Simultaneously, I think all companies are, and we too are looking at these things. I think some way of tightening the belt is absolutely essential. You can't get away from it. Today's world, we don't even know when the coronavirus problem is going to sort out. It could take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And the company's performance compared to last couple of years could be substantially lower. I think we have to tighten our belts, but the best way is to involve people into that, talk and share what we are planning to do, keep them in the know, be transparent, and then take a decision.
One more
I
question.
think, can I also add on this?
If I can just pose this to maybe Sanjay, why are Indian banks, public sector undertaking so reluctant to fund liquidity crisis in these times?
Sorry, I'm not audible.
Why are Indian banks so reluctant to fund liquidity crisis during these times? So why are banks not coming forward, and they have their own pressures? The question is, this is the time they should come forward and lend more. Why are they not doing is the question.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. 2 days back, this question was also raised in one of the other forum, and two very senior bankers said that they don't have any such proposals where, the proposals are lying pending, and they said if people come forward, we are there to help you and support you. But maybe behind the scene, there could be, what has been going, the question of investigations, the question of confidence building, and who will take the decision. So I think what Ajay said is the question of first the confidence building from the highest level, that, okay, if you take the right decisions, you will be taken care and you will be protected. So I think that would be my take on that. And coming to the first point about the people, what Ajay elaborated, I would say that when the company gives you support, company gives you confidence in tough and challenging time, it is reciprocal on the employees and the people that they should come forward and increase their productivity, they should deliver more, they should work better, they should work smarter, and then compensate for their lost time and how their usefulness can be reestablished, because everybody would like to be more efficient, more smart, and work in a better way, work in more competitive way. So it is up to the people themselves also that how they remain and retain their usefulness and come up to the situation.
I think that is we sort of we are coming closer to our time to close, but I'll actually make sure that the questions you have posed from the participants, we will get back to you. I think there are quite a few, and if you could just, we have noted down who has sent that, and we will come back to CII. I really appreciate your engagement on this. I'd like to just be changing the script a bit, given that I see some leading industrialists around. Maybe any quick comments anybody would want to give in whatever thing, Mr. Munja, Mr. Srinivasan, or anyone, if you could, Mr. Jalan, if it's all right, a few minutes more, it'll be useful, Rajiv.
Okay. Shall I go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So since this is an FBN event, I thought one aspect may be useful. This is also a tremendous learning opportunity for the generation that is either just entering business or has not yet entered business. Because as we have seen in our lives, the best learning comes from difficult experiences. And there is no bigger difficulty that the world has seen than the one we are facing right now. So I think it would be very important to involve youngsters in the process of how these decisions are being made and what the outcomes of these and how they get communicated. I can give you an example of what we did. Like many other companies, we said we will do a salary reduction. So I asked my daughter that you go and communicate it to every company. So first response was a pushback. Why me? This is a difficult thing. And then when I explained to her, she actually said, okay, tell me the few key things that I must say. And I want to then go and talk to each company myself. And so she's been doing this last 2 days and I believe today as well. And I think this is absolutely a phenomenal opportunity. We have to look at what the plus is in this. The crisis is there already. There are many, many opportunities for us to learn from this, to weird, as all the speakers said, to weirds towards technology, to show empathy for our people, but also get them involved in how you're making these decisions.
100% agree.
100%.
Anyone else? One more, otherwise I can close it. So maybe I can't see. Anyone else? Rajesh, I don't know. I'm just or Mr. Srinivasan or Mr. Deepak Kumar. There's a lot of people around here, but feel free, one or two people, quick perspective, because you don't get a chance to hear you. We're delighted that you've logged on to this. Right. So if there's nothing, no more comments, I would like to hand it over to Ritum. But before that, I thought I will close this by thanking the panelists for their real engagement, for their wonderful insights. I would like to close by actually quoting John F. Kennedy, which is very quite resonates with me. It says, the word crisis actually, when written in Chinese, actually has got two components. One is a danger, the other one is opportunity. So, in this Black Swan event or COVID event, family businesses, while should be mindful of this danger and pitfalls, should also seize the opportunity to move forward in the new normal by adopting this digital world in a much more expansive way. With that, I thank you for the opportunity given to me, FBN, for moderating this August panel. And thanks for all the participants for your time and engagement. And over to you, Ritum.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. I would take this opportunity again to thank the panelists, our seniors, Mr. Farhad. Thank you so much, Mr. Munjal, for your last closing comments. That was really insightful. I would also like to take this opportunity to show. That's it. Thank you so much, Amita, Sumit, Mamta, Rupa, for helping us organize this beautiful event. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.